Hello everyone, Matt here with thevirtualinstructor.com, and in this video I'd like to share with you excerpts from 3 recorded live lessons on a series that we recently completed on drawing with graphite and white charcoal in order to create the illusion of realistic marbles in a drawing. To learn how you can access this complete lesson series, as well as our other live lesson series, video courses, ebooks, lesson plans, and more, visit thevirtualinstructor.com/members today. Thanks, and I hope you enjoy the following excerpts. And I'm going to start with our central marble. And I'm going to start with this one because I want to make sure that I don't put it in the center of the picture plane. If I placed it dead center in the picture plane, what we'd end up with is a static composition. And we don't want a static composition. We want a composition that's a little bit more dynamic. So I'm going to put it off center just a little bit. And then we'll use that first marble to kind of get an idea of where we need to put the other ones. And I'm going to start by just drawing several circles, and I'm moving my entire arm to do so. And I'm barely touching the surface. If this seems difficult to you, what you might can do is start making circles in the air, and then gradually bring your arm down to the surface until you're making several circles. Now, of course, we're going to have another element at play here, and these are the shapes that are made by the cast shadows. And you can see these cast shadows extend out, and they're elliptical shapes. And they're going to take up quite a bit of the picture plane, and they become an element in the composition. And I want you to just look right now at what the composition looks like with just the shapes of the marbles in place without the elliptical shadows. It's quite different. And that will give you an indication of how important these elliptical shadows are to the overall composition. So let's go ahead and add the shapes for the cast shadows. Again, we're going to draw with several different lines, very lightly and loosely. So I can kind of pick a line and pick an edge out from the multiple circles that we drew here. So I'm still drawing very, very lightly. And I'm just going to allow that curve of that circle to slowly take shape. By drawing a light circle, that will make sure that I don't apply graphite in that area. This kind of looks like a Pokemon thing, doesn't it? I've got a couple of strong highlights that's happening right here, that are happening right there. Again, I'm just going to designate those locations. And then right here in the area of deepest shadow, we have the strong highlight that's happening right there. So I want to just keep a note that that's where that is located, and I want to make sure that I don't get too dark right there. It's very difficult to apply the white charcoal over the top of the graphite applications. So that's why I'm kind of designating these places and keeping them nice and clean for when I'm ready to make those charcoal applications over the top. And you got to remember that the tone of the paper is playing a role a little bit here too. So the value that's in this middle band is actually right here. It's actually lighter than the value of the paper. So we're going to be addressing that with the white charcoal, but we can put a little bit of graphite around each one of the edges and closer to the center where it slightly gets a little bit darker. Okay, let's go back and make this a little bit darker, and then we'll grab our blending stump and we'll do our initial blending. Slowly though, as we're starting to get a broader range of value on this first marble, even though we've only addressed the darker values, we've only addressed one side of the value scale at this point, we're starting to get a little bit more variety in this marble, and it's starting to be a little bit more interesting. The more that we look at it, hopefully you can see this in your own drawing, the more that you study the marble and the more you draw it, the more you'll see the little subtle changes of tone and value that make such a big difference in your final drawing. Like right along this top edge, it's slightly darker here. You have to really concentrate on the areas of high contrast in order to get it right. You can see how dark this 2B pencil gets. It's fairly dark. So I'm going to start in the area of, just like we started in the area of the darkest value when we started adding the graphite, we're going to start in the area of lightest value when we're adding the charcoal. And again, it's easier to make an area a little bit lighter in this case if we need to by adding just more of the material. So we'll start with lighter applications, and then we can get darker or get lighter with more pressure if we need to. Charcoal. The white charcoal will cover the dark charcoal to a certain degree. Just as you can see, we can kind of transition the light charcoal applications into the graphite applications a little bit, but it doesn't cover it completely. And you can see here, I've got a little bit of that graphite edge, that line that I drew right there, and it's not covering with the charcoal pencil. So you kind of have to just be careful and preserve those areas of highlight. So when we applied the graphite initially, we kind of preserved those areas. Now that I've pointed that out to myself, it's driving me crazy. So I'm going to take the kneaded eraser and erase out both the white charcoal and the graphite to try to get rid of that line there. And then I can go back with the charcoal pencil and make it a little bit stronger there and cover up that graphite line a little bit. Okay, let's go in here, just do a little bit of blending to these darker areas. And we'll go ahead and start applying this HB pencil first. And as it comes out to the outer edge out here, we'll allow it to fade just a little bit. And of course, this is going to be the strongest area of highlight. We want to leave a little bit of a thin line right there on the edge of the marble. We'll make this top edge just a slight bit darker too. Just slightly, not too much. And again, I say this every week, but I'll say it again. Don't get too worked up over making it exactly the same as what you see. You want to get it as close as possible, but if it's a little bit different, don't get hung up on that and don't allow it to kind of hinder your work. Keep going. What's important in every drawing and painting that you create is the drawing or painting that you create. And it's not the photo reference. It's the finished result. Put a little bit of graphite in this area. All right, so as we add this highlight, we can put some pretty heavy pressure there. We can make a light feel lighter by adding darker tones around it, and vice versa. Make a darker area feel darker by adding lighter values around it. And you can see the shape's a little bit different. We'll strengthen up a couple of these highlights here and there just to make a few of them stand out a little bit more. And it's that change in value that defines the edge, not a line. So the people who say, I don't have time to do this or that, are basically saying, I just don't think that this is a priority for me. I don't think this is important, is basically what they're saying. Because we make time for things that are important to us in our life. And if drawing well and painting well is important to you, well, then you'll make time for it. So it seems to me it's a little bit darker around the edges, and then it gets a little bit lighter as it comes closer to the center So I'm just being a little bit cautious, and I want to make sure that I don't cover up all those little specks that we're going to add in there. If I put too much graphite down at this point, it's going to be hard for the charcoal applications to cover up those little specks. And I do think I can see a little bit of my hand right here where I'm holding the camera to take the picture of the marbles. Sometimes when I'm working on a painting, I don't do this so much with the drawings. I'm not really sure why I do this with the painting tone. But when I'm working on a painting, sometimes I'll stop and I'll move the painting to another location and look at it in a different light. I'll take it outside maybe, or take it to a different room and just look at it under a little bit of a different light. And sometimes it's amazing what you see just by looking at it with a little bit of a different light. Here. And just like when we started with the darker areas of value, we started in the areas of darkest value and then kind of worked our way out. And that's what we're doing here. We're starting in the areas of lightest value and we're going to work our way out. So the lightest value I see is this highlight. Now you can create quite a bit of variety here with the pressure that you place on your pencil. And so even within these areas of strong highlight, we can have some areas that are a little bit more intense. You can see down here, it's a little bit more intense, and then it fades out a little bit. All right, so I'm just going in with a 2B pencil, and as I'm starting to add this 2B pencil application here, you can see the value is progressively getting darker, clearly. But as we make the value darker, we're broadening the value range. And as we do that, we're increasing the contrast. And as we increase the contrast, look how much those lighter areas are starting to look. The edge is going to be a little bit more defined right here, closer to the marble. And then as we go out towards the outer edge, it'll fade out. And we want to make sure, again, that the darkness that we go with this shadow kind of matches up with the darkness of the other shadows that we've produced. Now, it can be a little bit darker because this marble's closer. There we go. It looks like everything's working together. It looks like we've got some reflective marbles. Let's go ahead and do the last one. So I'm going to slide this one over here and we'll zoom in. So again, now just isolating those areas of highlight so that I can start making those values darker. And I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but a lot of these highlights repeat. They're in similar locations. And that's one of the things that's going to help us make sure this drawing looks consistent. We do the things that we believe we can do in life. Don't we? Think about it. Is there anything that you've done? Maybe you've done something that you didn't think you could do it, but then as you got into the process of doing it, you started to discover, hey, wait a minute, I can do this. And then as you started to believe that you could do this, it happened. You made it happen. Isn't that funny the way things work like that? And I think drawing and painting is one of those things. When you start believing that you can do it, then you start to do it. And the more that you believe you can do it, the better you get at it. I think that there is a great power in believing. And maybe you've noticed that I've made this one a little bit darker than what's happening in the reference. And I've done that on purpose. And the reason why I've made this one a little bit darker is because I want to play up a little bit more of the contrast, since this one is the one that's closest to the viewer. So again, as we add those darker values under here with the 4B pencil, look at how much that white starts to pop out a little bit more. I think sometimes people get confused when I say circular strokes. They think I mean that you're drawing little tiny circles. And I'm just making circular strokes. They're not even really circular. They're kind of elliptical, more elliptical. All right, around the outer edge, we've got a little bit of a fade, a little bit of a transition. All right, let's zoom out and have a look at that. If you enjoyed this video, then I know that you'll enjoy being a member at thevirtualinstructor.com. Our comprehensive membership program includes video courses on drawing and painting, weekly live lessons, ebooks, lesson plans for teachers, weekly critiques, and much, much more. To learn more about our program, just visit thevirtualinstructor.com/members or click on the card in the upper right-hand corner. And if you want to check out 3 of our course modules for free, you can do so. Just click on the link on your screen now. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.